Most of our pain does not come from what happens, but from how we respond to what happens. And nowhere is this truer than in our relationships with other people. The Stoics understood something we still struggle to grasp today, that much of our suffering in human conflict is self-inflicted. It's not the disagreement itself, but the ego behind it. Not the words spoken, but our attachment to how we believe we should be treated. When someone wrongs you, what's your first instinct? To defend yourself? To fire back? To correct them? Epictetus warned that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And in interpersonal challenges, your reaction is often the match that lights the fire, or the breath that extinguishes it. Solving problems with people begins with solving your own reactions. When you feel anger rise, pause. When you feel misunderstood, consider, is clarity needed, or is silence the higher road? Not every insult requires an answer. Not every disagreement needs a winner. Often, the most powerful person in the room is the one who can walk away with their peace intact. The Stoics called this inner strength apatheia, not apathy, but freedom from irrational emotion. It's the ability to stay composed in the middle of storms, to hear an accusation and not flinch, to be ignored and not demand attention, to feel the urge to argue and let it pass like a breeze slipping through an open window. Picture a still lake. You can throw a stone into it, but the ripples will always fade. That's what a Stoic mind is like when dealing with people. Centered, calm, untouched, at its depth. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." When someone hurts us, we replay their words over and over. We assign intention, we amplify meaning. But what if we stopped? What if we took people's actions not as personal attacks, but as projections of their own struggles? When someone lashes out, ask, are they really angry at me, or are they angry with life? When they gossip, is it truly about me, or about their own need to feel important? The Stoic does not rush to defend his pride. He examines the wound and asks if it's real, and often it isn't. Another Stoic practice is the view from above. Imagine zooming out from the argument, floating above yourself, seeing both people as two small figures navigating fleeting emotions. In the vastness of time and space, how much does this disagreement really matter? From that vantage point, grudges look small, ego looks foolish, and forgiveness becomes not a favor to them, but a gift to yourself. This isn't weakness, it's clarity, the power to disengage from the drama others try to pull you into, the strength to say, I choose peace over pride. I choose virtue over victory. A Stoic knows that the hardest battles are invisible. When someone disrespects you and you remain calm, that's strength. When you want to prove a point but choose to listen instead, that's control. And when you feel the sting of offense but let it go, that's wisdom. Think of the people. In your life, you struggle with what would change if you removed your expectations of them. What if you stopped needing them to be different and started focusing on who you are when you're around them? Solving problems with people doesn't mean fixing them. It means mastering yourself in their presence. So begin here, the next time. Someone irritates you, don't react. Breathe, observe, choose stillness over impulse. That single act might be the first step toward real peace, not just between you and them, but within your own soul. And as Marcus Aurelius reminded himself in the quiet of his journal, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly, but none of them can harm me, for I have seen the beauty of good, and it is mine to choose. Why do we expect other people to be what they're not? Why do we hope they'll suddenly act with the wisdom they've never shown, or understand us without ever walking in our shoes? One of the greatest sources of interpersonal conflict comes from unrealistic expectations, and the Stoics, grounded in hard truth, warned us against this trap. Don't ask that things happen as you wish, Epictetus said. Wish for things to happen as they do, and you will find peace. Apply this to people. Don't ask that someone suddenly becomes honest, kind, or empathetic. Don't expect someone to apologize when they've never shown humility. Instead, wish to see them as they are, and then act accordingly. This is not giving up on others. It's releasing the fantasy that they will behave as we imagine. You can't control how someone treats you, but you can always control how you interpret and respond to it. That is the Stoic advantage. Not immunity to harm, but mastery over. Reaction. Consider how often you've been hurt because you expected a friend to reach out, a partner to understand, or a colleague to respect your boundaries. And when they didn't, it wasn't just their action that stung, it was the collapse of your expectations. The Stoics teach detachment not to make us cold, but to make us realistic. By detaching from the illusion of control over others, we become free to act from wisdom rather than woundedness. This doesn't mean you let people walk over you. Seneca warned that he who suffers before it is necessary, suffers more than is necessary. When we carry imagined future betrayals in our mind, or dwell on emotional debts others haven't paid, we suffer twice, once in the world and again. In our thoughts, a Stoic solves problems with people, not by forcing change, but by adjusting perspective. When someone fails you, ask yourself, was this person ever capable of giving me what I wanted? If not, then why was I depending on them to fulfill that need? Freedom begins where expectation ends, and real peace, the kind that can't be taken, starts with accepting others as they are, not as we wish them to be. Now, think of someone who's let you down. What were you hoping they'd say? What did you wish they'd do differently? And can you, in this moment, release that hope and replace it with understanding? This is not surrender. This is liberation. Seneca put it clearly, a wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not. That includes the people around him. He doesn't need them to change in order to stay at peace, because his peace comes from virtue, not from validation. So if you want to solve problems with others, begin not by changing them, but by changing the narrative in your own mind. Let people be who they are. You, meanwhile, can be something else entirely. Composed, aware, free. There's a subtle power in restraint, the kind of power that doesn't demand, doesn't dominate, and doesn't explode. When it comes to dealing with people, this quiet strength can be the difference between war and peace. The Stoics knew that not every battle needed to be fought. Sometimes the greatest victory is in walking away with your integrity untouched. Think about the last time someone insulted you or dismissed your opinion. Did you feel that surge of heat in your chest, that need to make your voice heard, that impulse to win the moment? That's natural, but it's not always wise. Stoicism teaches us to separate impulse from action. Just because you feel something doesn't mean it must be acted upon. Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue, said a Stoic sage. Words spoken in haste are harder to take back than steps taken in error. One careless sentence can unravel years of trust. One defensive outburst can plant a seed of distance that grows into resentment. The art of restraint is not silence for silence's sake. It's purposeful stillness. It's choosing not to fuel the fire. Imagine your words as arrows. Do they hit a target with intention, or are they launched wildly just because you're angry? The Stoic mind holds its words like a bow holds tension, not released until there's clarity of aim. Sometimes solving problems with people means saying less. It means listening without needing to correct. It means observing patterns without always confronting them. This doesn't mean you become a doormat. It means you develop the wisdom to know when to act, and how to act in a way that preserves your virtue. The Stoics believed in prohairesis, your rational faculty, your ability to choose, your inner responses regardless of what happens externally. If someone offends you, you are not obligated to mirror their behavior. You can pause, you can reflect, you can ask, is this worth my energy? Will speaking now make things better, or just satisfy my pride? Pride is a silent saboteur in human conflict. It whispers that you deserve better, that you must defend yourself, that silence is weakness. But often, that whisper is not your reason, it's your ego. And ego has no place in Stoic practice. Ego escalates, reason escalates. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you always own the option of having no opinion. Think about that. You don't have to have an opinion about every comment, every jab, every careless remark someone makes. You can let it pass through you like wind through trees. Not everything deserves your engagement. This doesn't mean you avoid necessary confrontation. It means you choose your battles based on values, not vanity. When something needs to be addressed, the Stoic addresses it with calm, clarity, and compassion. not to punish, but to restore harmony, not to vent, but to resolve. Imagine you're in a room with someone shouting at you. You remain still. You breathe slowly. You speak only when needed, and when you do, your words carry the weight of intention. That's power. That's composure. And that's what Stoicism builds in you. Ask yourself, where in your life are you reacting more than reflecting? Who pushes your buttons? And why do those buttons exist in the first place? What if you rewired them? What if you responded to provocation not with emotion, but with quiet strength? In doing so, you become unshakable. You stop needing to win arguments. You stop being dragged into emotional whirlwinds. You remain grounded, not because others are kind, but because you've trained yourself to be immovable in virtue. The next time you're about to speak in anger, pause. The next time you're tempted to prove a point, ask, what am I trying to win, and what might I lose? Sometimes the real victory is in restraint. Sometimes the most stoic answer is no answer at all. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood Stoic virtues. Many see it as softness, as giving in, as letting others off the hook. But to the Stoic, forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about reclaiming your own peace. When you hold on to resentment, who suffers more? The one who hurt you, or you, reliving the injury over and over? Epictetus would say, you are disturbed not by what happened, but by your judgment of it. When you judge something as unforgivable, you chain yourself to the pain. When you let go, you become free. That doesn't mean you excuse harmful behavior. Forgiveness does not require reconciliation. It does not require pretending nothing happened. What it requires is an internal shift from bitterness to understanding, from rage to reason. Consider this. People act out of their own limitations, their upbringing, their fears, their wounds. When someone betrays your trust, it reveals more about their relationship with themselves than their relationship with you. That doesn't mean you welcome them back with open arms, but it does mean you stop carrying their mistake in your heart like a wound that never closes. Seneca observed that to be angry is to avenge the faults of others on ourselves. When you stay angry, you're punishing yourself for someone else's actions. You're drinking poison and hoping they feel it. This is not strength. This is slavery to emotion. Forgiveness, from a Stoic point of view, is rational. It's the wise recognition that your time, energy, and inner state are too valuable to waste on grudges. Imagine dragging a heavy stone behind you everywhere you go. That's what a grudge is. Letting go doesn't mean the past didn't happen. It means you're no longer letting it shape your present. When dealing with people who have wronged you, ask, what lesson did this experience teach me? How can I protect my peace in the future without closing my heart? Can I honor my own worth without needing them to acknowledge it? Forgiveness is not a gift to them. It's a declaration that you refuse to be defined by the pain someone else caused. Marcus Aurelius put it simply, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. To forgive is to rise above. To say, I will not mirror your cruelty. I will not live in reaction to you. I will choose virtue, even when you chose vice. This doesn't mean the work is easy. Forgiveness is a process, a decision you may have to make again and again. But each time you choose it, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Think now, who are you? Still carrying inside, long after the moment has passed. Who still lives in your mind, occupying space they no longer deserve. What would it feel like to let them go? Not for their sake, but for your own freedom, to solve problems with people. Sometimes you must first solve the wound within yourself, and forgiveness is the key that unlocks the gate. What if the problem isn't them, but your expectations of them? The Stoics taught that much of our suffering comes not from events themselves, but from the assumptions we attach to them. When it comes to dealing with people, this is perhaps truer than anywhere else. We expect others to behave as we would, to understand our needs without being told, to change when they hurt us. But reality, in its pure and indifferent nature, rarely conforms to our inner scripts. You must stop hoping for the man who insults you to change, said a voice of Stoic reason. It is easier to control your judgment than to reshape another. Soul. This isn't pessimism, it's clarity. It's accepting that people are who they are, not who we wish them to be. Every expectation you place on someone else is a potential source of disappointment. You expect gratitude, and instead, you get silence. You expect loyalty, and instead you get betrayal. You expect understanding, and instead you're met with indifference. The pain doesn't stem from what happened, but from the distance between what happened and what you hoped for. So what's the Stoic alternative? It is to engage with others as they are, not as idealized versions of themselves. To judge them not by their potential, but by their patterns. To let go of the illusion that people owe you alignment with your values. This doesn't mean you become cynical, it means you become discerning. It means you free yourself from the emotional roller coaster of unmet assumptions. If you go to a well that's always dry, is the well to blame, or your decision to keep returning to it? This is not about cold detachment, it's about mental freedom. When you stop demanding consistency, you start observing character. When you stop expecting perfection, you start making room for reality. This approach also protects your relationships. Often, the roots of conflict are not in action, but in assumption. You assumed your friend would support you. You assumed your partner would know what you need. You assumed your colleague would take responsibility. And when they didn't, the gap between hope and truth turned into resentment. To navigate life with fewer conflicts, adjust your expectations, not to a level of despair, but to a place of clarity. Expect others to act according to their nature, not yours. Expect mistakes, flaws, and forgetfulness. Expect that people will prioritize their needs just as you prioritize yours. When you operate from this foundation, you'll be less reactive and far more resilient. Let's make this practical. Think of someone who continually lets you down. Ask yourself, what are you expecting from them that they have consistently failed to deliver? Now ask, is it fair to keep expecting that? Would you expect a storm not to rain or fire not to burn? By adjusting your expectations, you don't lower your standards. You remove your suffering. You shift from wishful thinking to grounded understanding. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning, you will meet people who are selfish, rude, deceitful. That is their nature. But they cannot harm your soul unless you let them. In recognizing what to expect, you disarm their power over you. Release others from the obligation to make you happy. That is your work, not theirs. Release yourself from the belief that your peace depends on their choices. That is a fragile way to live. There's great freedom in this practice. When you expect nothing but accept everything, life and people lose their sharp edges. You don't take things as personally, you respond with wisdom. You solve problems before they escalate. Because you're not shocked by human nature, you've accounted for it. And so, the Stoic solution to many interpersonal problems isn't confrontation or control, it's recalibration. It's learning to see clearly without distortion. And from that clarity, choosing your next step with peace, not pain. There is a moment before every response, a sliver of time so small it's almost invisible. But within that pause lies the entire essence of Stoicism. It's the moment when someone disrespects you and your instinct screams for revenge. It's the moment when your blood surges, your throat tightens, and the perfect insult forms on your tongue. It's the moment between provocation and reaction. And it is here that Stoic mastery is forged. Epictetus taught that it's not what happens to you that matters, but how you respond to it. Every emotional flare, every confrontation, every misunderstanding, it all passes through the filter of your prohorosis, your power of choice. You may not choose the storm, but you choose how to sail through it to deal with people effectively. You must train yourself to live in the pause. The pause is where you ask, what outcome do I truly want? Not what your ego wants, not what would feel good in the moment, but what would preserve your character, protect your peace, and possibly resolve the issue. Many of our worst problems with people stem from that instinctual lunge, the automatic, untrained response, sarcasm, anger, withdrawal, silence as punishment. These are the tools of an unexamined mind. Stoicism sharpens awareness to the point where these tools are no longer automatic, but chosen, if at all. So how do you extend the pause? Begin with breath. The moment tension rises, return to it. Inhale slowly, exhale even slower. This biological rhythm calms the primitive brain. It puts space between stimulus and reaction. And in that space, you can see more clearly than question the thought. He disrespected me becomes, did he? Or am I interpreting this through a filter of insecurity? "She always ignores me" becomes, "Has she truly ignored me, or am I assigning motive where none was given?" When you slow the mind, it reveals the roots. Often, our reactivity isn't about this moment, but accumulated moments, old wounds, past patterns. The Stoics invite us to untangle that web before we act. Another method. Imagine how your higher self would respond. The version of you that is calm, wise, detached from ego. What would that person say or do right now? If you can see that version, you can become that version. People often say they regret what they said in anger. Rarely do they regret the words they spoke in stillness. Let that be your aim, not silence, but intentionality. Consider how much energy is lost in regrettable reactions. Days spent overthinking, relationships strained, guilt that lingers. What if all that could be prevented with a 3-second pause? You may not always succeed, you're human, but every time you remember the pause and choose it, you rewire the nervous system toward reason. You reinforce the Stoic path. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself again and again, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. What happens if you hold yourself to this before responding to people? What changes? The pause is not weakness. It's a superpower in disguise. It's where the untrained mind lashes out and the Stoic mind leans into reason, into compassion, into control. You are not a slave to emotion. You are not a puppet of impulse. You are a thinker, a philosopher, a practitioner of inner strength, and every pause you honor is a small act of freedom. How often do we confuse resolution with victory? In conflicts, we're taught to win, to have the last word, to prove we were right all along. But the Stoics never aimed to win arguments. They aimed to win clarity, peace, and virtue. What is the use of being right if, in the process, you lose your tranquility? Seneca once reflected, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Extend that logic to relationships, and you find it is not the man who is wronged, but the man who cannot let go that suffers clinging to being right, to receiving apologies, to having your side validated. These are forms of craving that quietly poison the soul. Think of the last argument you had. Was your peace more important than the point you were trying to make? Did the desire to be understood override the need to understand? Most interpersonal problems persist not because of the initial disagreement, but because of our inability to release it afterward. The Stoics propose a different measure of success: detachment with dignity. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to be acknowledged to move forward. In fact, your deepest power lies in the ability to move on without being seen, praised, or apologized to. Let's consider a simple, everyday example. You're blamed for something at work that wasn't your fault. The urge to defend yourself flares up immediately. Your mind prepares its case like a lawyer. But pause. Ask, will defending myself here solve anything, or simply protect my ego? If the accusation genuinely harms your role or reputation, then a clear, calm explanation is enough. But if it's just a bruise to your pride, let it go. The Stoics urge us to ask, what part of me is being hurt? Is it my virtue or just my vanity? There's a story of a Stoic philosopher who was publicly insulted. His response? Silence. When asked why he didn't defend himself, he said, if it was true, there was no need. If it was false, there was no harm. Not the power to crush your enemies, but the power to remain unshaken by them. Resolution does not always mean reconciliation. Some relationships won't heal. Some misunderstandings won't be cleared. But peace doesn't wait for others to meet you halfway. Peace begins when you stop demanding it from the outside world and cultivate it within. Imagine a river. It doesn't stop because rocks are in its weight, flows around them. You can be the same. You don't need every relationship to be perfect. You don't need every person to understand you. You need only to remain consistent with your character, to speak and act from principle, not provocation. And if closure never comes, make your own. Write the letter you'll never send. Say the apology you never received aloud to yourself, and then release it. The Stoics believe the mind is its own place. If it releases it, it is free. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. If someone is petty, be principled. If they lie, be honest. If they insult, respond with dignity or not at all. Don't mirror their behavior. Mirror your own highest self. This approach doesn't just solve problems, it prevents them. When you no longer need validation, so many arguments become unnecessary. When you no longer need control, you stop trying to fix people who never asked to be fixed. You are not here to change others. You are here to guard your soul, to protect your energy, to walk the earth with grace. Let that be your quiet victory, and let that victory be enough. There is one final Stoic key to solving problems with people, and it's the one most often ignored: self-honesty. It's easy to analyze others, to spot their flaws, to explain, even justify, our behavior in the face of theirs. But the Stoics demanded a harder, deeper task: to examine your own soul before judging another. First, tell yourself what kind of person you want to be, said a Stoic voice. Then do what you have to do. That includes being honest about your role in conflicts, your blind spots, your reactivity, your pride. How many problems persist because we won't admit our part in them? How many apologies go unspoken because of ego? How many bridges burn because we wanted to be right more than we wanted to be whole? Self-reflection is the compass of Stoic living. Every night, Marcus Aurelius reviewed his day not to punish himself, but to purify his intentions. Where did I fall short? Where did I act with virtue? Where did I let anger, impatience, or fear guide me? When was the last time you asked, how might I have caused this tension? What did I assume, project, or ignore? Was I truly listening, or just waiting to speak? Did I speak the truth, or a version of it that made me look better? These questions are not accusations. They are the path to liberation. Because once you see your patterns, you can choose to break them. Once you own your shadow, it no longer controls you. Think of a recent misunderstanding. Instead of focusing on what the other person did, ask what within you contributed. Did you communicate clearly? Did you carry old baggage into the moment? Did you overreact, or shut down, or manipulate, instead of express? The Stoics taught that character is not built in calm, but revealed in conflict. Every time someone triggers you, they are showing you something unhealed. Every time you feel the need to dominate, you are revealing your insecurity. And every time you blame without reflection, you are postponing your own growth. There is a kind of quiet courage in saying, I was wrong, or even, I could have done better. Not because you're weak, but because you're committed to truth. And truth, for the Stoic, is the foundation of a virtuous life. So how does this solve problems with people? It softens you. It makes you more open to dialogue. It allows you to apologize without losing dignity. It creates space for others to drop their defenses. And it prevents the next problem before it even begins. When people feel seen, heard, and respected, they respond differently. Not always, but often enough. And even when they don't, you know you've done your part. That is Stoic justice. Doing what is right, regardless of the outcome. The ultimate Stoic relationship advice might be this: be so in tune with your inner world that no outer world can unbalance you. Let your peace be louder than their noise. Let your integrity speak when words cannot, and when all else fails, return to yourself. Sit in silence. Ask the hard questions. Own your part. Forgive what can be forgiven. Release what can't. And walk forward lighter, wiser, freer. Because in the end, the person you must live with every day and every hour is you.